right, we're here for HB Live number 48, I think it is. And we've got a very special guest back with us again, our good friend Mona Baltazar. Say hi, Mona. Hi. And our beautiful model, Luce. Hi. Luce has this incredible, beautiful, curly, natural hair, but it doesn't have much of a shape, so she's going to get the Mona cut.
Hell yeah.
So tell us what you're going to do. Get in there and then we'll talk about it.
All right, so I'm going to go through a little bit of a sample on how I...
Hi, Frank.
How I look at curly hair when they come in. So I had asked her to come in with her hair dry, a little bit of product, just so I can see what her hair already looks like. So as I'm looking at her hair, I'm going to determine the length first. So because her hair is basically one length, it has no layers, it's pulling everything down. So no movement, no shape. As you can see, if you can kind of...
Hey, Joe.
Kelly, show right here in front of her, where the length underneath her hair, right above her ears, this is basically, you know, I guess the sideburn area.
Yeah, I can see the sideburn area.
As you can tell, it's much shorter than the rest of her hair.
Yep.
So I'm going to use that as my guide, actually. So this is basically what I would do first when determining a client's length, especially if she okayed me to cut it a little shorter.
You check out the sideburn hair.
Well, the shortest part of the hair, it could be, you know, basically the front, where the front is.
So it's usually because it's kind of thinner and weaker here. Yeah,
yes.
It's like a good place to judge the length.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, a big part of what you do is analyzing the hair before you cut it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us, you know, what do you see when you look at Luce's hair? I mean, I know some people have very complicated systems. We've talked about it before, where you don't use like the number system or anything like that.
No, I don't.
But what are you picking up from her hair? What's the message?
So first, you know, I take a look at how her hair is growing out of her roots. So a lot of people always ask, I want more volume, I want more of this. I determine that whether I can tell my client yes or no. Because my technique is I go with what I have as my palette. So yes, technically, if she's asking me I want more volume, I can tell her, yes, we can get a lot more volume. If we take some of these layers out, her curl pattern would naturally revive itself.
So you still use a lot of traditional cutting rules. You think about layering, weight removal. So you kind of do it in a different way, but you think about it in a lot of the same ways. I heard you mentioning graduation, layering. All right, so let's get into the sectioning and let's get started.
Okay, so I'm going to separate the front into the back. So most of her hair is in the back. So most of my cutting is going to be in the back. You see how she's a lot denser in the back. So I still look at all that.
Great, so we have lots of our friends joining from all over. Of course, we've got
Serbia.
Frank Mussolino. I think it's a record now. We've got Danielle Green, Joe Profita, another great friend of ours. Alicia Torrens, love you, Mona. You're so talented. One of our friends from Serbia, who we see on the HB app all the time. Hopefully I can pronounce this right, Dejan. And then we've got Christy Ramos. She loves your passion for curls. All right, so it looks like you're getting started now on the cut. So
I'm going to give her, I'm going to determine her length.
Okay, so first off, we can obviously notice you're not using a comb. So do you generally not use a comb when you're cutting?
No.
Just kind of curl?
Curl, yeah. If I do use a comb, I use like a really wide tooth comb.
Right, so you basically, with your fingers, you take the section, get the hair out of the way, you let it fall.
Yes.
And now, would you say you're just putting in the outline? You're like trying to determine the outside length?
Based on what the shortest part of her hair, which is going to be my guide.
All right, so here's a question that came in from Princess. Are you thinking about the outline kind of being square all the way around, or do you have like an idea? Do you want it to maybe be rounder, longer towards the back, or are you looking for it all kind of one length and square?
I'm going to do a little bit more of a square, and I'm going to round up the back for her because...
So the line is square, but then the layers will be rounder.
The layer's going to be rounder.
Okay,
That's going to give her that fullness.
Thanks for the question, Princess. Again, guys, we love questions. It's
Big or
definitely
small?
what makes this interesting. Mona's got a great technique here. So Mona, tell us about, your day in the salon, because I know even from the last time we had you on, which was, I don't even know, 30 episodes ago, you've just continued to get busier and busier and really build this brand for yourself, the Mona Cut. So how's it working for you, like having this message about working with curly hair?
It's great. I mean, it's kind of nice to be a part of this community and them allowing me to be a part of it as well. It's a different kind of clientele, and I am getting busier over time. I only do work 3 days a week, so some clients wait a couple of weeks to get in, especially on a Saturday. And I try to do my best as, trying to get as many clients as I can, but I have been much busier.
Okay, so we have a question coming in from Lee Brown, and this is the kind of question that comes up a lot about wet or dry. So obviously, maybe if it's hard to tell on camera, Mona's working completely dry today, but tell us your thoughts about working wet versus dry, and what's your process like?
I do both. The time that I do cut it wet is when my client has wavier hair, a lot looser, or if they want to go super short, or if they have a lot of heat damage and they just want to get rid of it and they want to do a big chop. That's the time I do decide to cut it wet. And also I have a lot of clients who, if you just kind of put a little layer in their hair and they just have just a slight texture, but if you want to kind of push it to give it more of a beachy look, then I do cut it wet as well. But dry, because when you can actually see the pattern, you want to make sure that most clients with very defined curls, they actually have multiple different texture in there. Some are wavy, some are straight, some are really much tighter than the front or the back. So it has to be able to blend together.
So working dry like you're doing, you don't have to worry so much about tension. You just drop the pieces down, you cut them as they are, whether they're loose or tight,
yes.
And you visualize a shape and you cut them in. Where when it's wet, you tend to have to think about tension and shrinkage, exactly, and all that kind of stuff. Yep.
And also with curly hair, when she gets home, my goal is to be able to give her a good shape, and she can wear it daily. But as all the curly girl hair knows, their hair is going to change on a daily. But I want to keep the integrity of the shape that I put into their hair.
All right, so generally you're putting in the shape dry, unless there's some major damage and you're going to do some pre-cutting.
Pre-cutting, yeah.
And now you also kind of do it after you cut it dry. You cut the shape and you go through the process.
I refine it.
Then you usually wet it down and you style it.
So usually in the salon, I would go as soon as I finish giving her shape. It's not 100%, but I will shampoo her. Put some conditioner on their hair, put them under the put some powder, put it under the dryer, and then I do refine it same way, in any texture.
So
after
dry
you blow
a
dry
second time. So you cut it dry, wet it, restyle it in a very natural way,
yeah.
And that's your thing, really. Your cuts are designed for women or men to wear them curly.
Wear them curly, yes.
So it's not like you're trying to say, oh, you should be able, blow this out straight.
Well, if they do tell me that once in a while, I take that into consideration.
Right, so that's a question that came in. It comes in a lot. So when you cut like this, what happens? This one was from Natalia. What happens if she wants to straighten it?
She can straighten it. She just can't have it super straight flat because some of it's not going to be.
But if someone told you I want to wear it perfectly flat ironed all the time, you'd maybe cut it in a different way.
I would probably cut it more on the wet side.
Wet and precision cut. So your goal here is cutting it dry so they can wear it natural, or if they're going to wear it straight, like bouncy, volume straight, not like flat iron.
Because it just makes more sense that way.
Great. All right, let's get back into the technique. So I really want you to explain how thick are the sections. Does it vary from head to head? Like right here with loose, what are you thinking about when you take that section down?
What I'm thinking about is, she has a good amount of hair. It's not super, super dense. I'm just taking it about an inch because really I need to be able to see that shape stacked together, and making it thinner and all that stuff, half an inch doesn't really make a difference because really taking the perimeter first, and then from later on I will show you being able to see it from the side. It's just going to be easier to kind of see the graduated.
Right. So you're dropping these down now and you're basically
lining it, and then we're going to go in and graduate it afterwards.
Okay, so this is step number one. Now, how do you know, do you grab every single curl?
Yes.
So visually you just get on a rhythm,
yes,
where you just grab the curls. And do you twist them a little bit before you cut them?
Not on her hair. Maybe later on, but not right now.
So
as I'm taking
what in your thought process, what's the difference between twisting them and not twisting them?
I feel like when I have much more of a coilier client with a much tighter, because it springs up, it bounces back on its own. So when I'm kind of pulling it, I kind of want to see which way it's going. So whichever direction I want to take it, I want to see that curl pattern still stay the same. So I guess that's kind of one of the reasons why.
Right, so I guess twisting it puts on different tension and pulls it.
Yes, for me.
It starts to put elevation and tension on it. Where you don't twist it, it's flowing very, very natural and you're just kind of carving it in. Makes sense. Yep. Question from Barry. We've got Barry Bakken maintaining the questions. We're back at the main, which is the studio for main entrance artists here in New York City.
Welcome.
So Barry, please share a question.
So Deshaun is asking what your favorite way for drying the curls is, Mona.
My favorite way for drying the hair?
Yeah, when you style it, how do you approach it?
Oh, diffuse. But under the hooded dryer first, because it just takes up the salon. Actually, it's kind of like, like air drying almost when you put them under the dryer. And at the salon, you want to, time is money, I guess. And so putting them under the dryer, I don't always dry them 100% because sometimes if they get too dry, I still will re-wet their hair with a spray bottle and then diffuse their hair for another 10 to 15 minutes.
So a big part of your message, because you've been so successful building so much on Instagram, driving so much business into the salon, a big part of your message is to get people to embrace their natural hair. It's kind of like an empowerment thing.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because again, there's always people that are like, oh, well, what if she wants to wear it straight? And there's obviously millions and thousands of hairdressers that can do that, but you've really, really focused on saying, I want to work with your hair natural and curly. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, so, with the curly hair community for a long time, this is just, from all the clients that's kind of sat in my chair have pretty similar stories when they've told me, I've used to just wear my hair straight because culturally that's what beauty is in their culture or their parents or they're just family members. So, finally, this curly hair movement, a lot of these young girls are like, you know what, F it. I want to see my texture.
It's a lot about empowerment, isn't it? It's like, this is who I am.
This is who I am.
This is my hair type.
I'm not going to, yeah, exactly. So that's, a lot of that comes from, all these young girls sitting on my chair and allowing their hair and wanting to see what their hair actually looks like.
Right, so there's and it seems like, because I see obviously all your pictures, it's definitely a certain age range of 21 to 30 or maybe even younger that are really kind of embracing.
Yes.
Luce, do you, this is our model Luce under here, with the beautiful hair and face.
We see you guys.
How did you find out about Mona and how did you decide to get a Mona cut?
Well, she has a very strong following on Instagram, so she's literally everywhere.
So you saw a lot of her work?
Yep. Yeah, all over the place, and I thought it was amazing.
Do you usually wear your hair natural? Do you always wear it natural?
I have been for about 2 to 3 years now. I went through the process of damaging my hair because I felt like I needed to be straight all the time. And
so what was the change there that made you, want to start to wear it natural?
I mean, I just felt like I was tired of damaging my natural hair, feeling I have to go into a salon and get straightened.
Right on. So you just owned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And now Mona's cutting it. You're getting the Mona cut. Awesome. Okay. So now, Mona, would you say you have your outline in?
Yes, I do. Now
Okay. So now what's step number 2?
So step number 2, I'm going to still go back in just like, if you're cutting straight hair. I'm still going to go back and resection it one more time. And this is when I'm going to actually create my shape. You see how I get my perimeter, and you can kind of see it's already graduated.
Yeah, that's just from the curl itself and kind of holding it down. So it's like you've got like a bob with graduation on really curly hair.
So
but you're going to release more weight than that.
Yes, and I'm going to pump up some of this and shorten some of these layers to kind of create more of a round.
So give us an overview. Explain how you're going to do that so that as we're watching you do it, we can follow the process.
Just like, in technical term in any hair cutting, I'm still going to follow the whole 45-degree lifting it to create graduation. So it's still the same thing. You're just not using a comb. You're just using each strand, but I still use that same
Right. So you're working within sections. You're still thinking about elevation.
Exactly.
So do you pretty much feel like what you've got right now is what you're going to get? Is that why you cut it dry? I mean, obviously this isn't going to shrink much more. When you release the weight, it'll shrink a bit.
It'll shrink a bit, but because it's still really heavy, and then, this isn't a bad shape. Actually, I love the triangular shape, but because, when she this is not gonna last her very long.
Yeah,
we
so you're
wanna
gonna
soften
put some
some of it.
layering through the inside,
Yes.
and the layer's gonna feel like rounder?
A little rounder, yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's get to see some of that. Tell us where you're gonna start.
I'm gonna start in the back, and I'm gonna work my way to the front. So same thing. I am gonna keep a strong perimeter, meaning I'm just gonna keep that first layer. Okay, that first layer in.
So you're just gonna drop this outline out?
Yes, but I am gonna soften it.
Okay.
So I'm not necessarily starting from the nape, because I don't want that to be weak. Remember, she has so much more hair here. It has to be still balanced.
You know, again, you know, everyone that's watching, we want you to think about diversity. There's so many different ways to do hair. And yes, you could wet the hair, you could cut it curly, you could blow dry it straight and cut it. So many different ways, and we're always trying to capture that. Mona's approach here is to work with the hair natural and encourage people to wear it really natural for lots of reasons, and it's definitely struck a chord in helping her grow her business, which is incredible. So now you're kind of cutting from the underneath of the section.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make a difference for
Yes,
you?
of course. So let's say, because I want to build it. And if she has so much more density, I would probably carve it down, just like, you know, taking the weight out from, you know, underneath, so it's kind of a little flatter, just because sometimes we do want big hair, but sometimes it gets a little too big. But in her case, we want to try to exaggerate that, because her as far as her density goes, she's got like a nice amount of density.
So-
and it's important. Density is very important too, as far as considering how you cut the client's hair, what shape you need to consider giving her, you know?
So lots of love coming in for embracing natural hair, natural texture. But of course, there's always some people that are wondering what's going to happen if it's blow dried straight. And your message is, if you were going to blow dry this straight, you do it in a different way.
And Luce, you don't dry your hair straight, do you?
I have not in a very long time.
So you will wear your hair curly?
Yes, natural curls.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, that question, it's just something that always comes up.
It's
you
part
know?
of the
It's
consultation.
a never-ending thing. You know, some people have maybe trouble grasping it or appreciating it, but it's really, that's what this is all about, wearing it for what it is. And you know what? When you find your niche market, you know, if you can get 20 or 30 of them coming to you a week, you're going to be really busy, right, Mona? Which you've been these days, huh? Super busy.
Super busy daily. Even my assistant's like, oh my god. She's gotten used to it, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You know, they spend 2 or 3 hours with me at the salon because we gotta style them, we gotta wash them.
It's a process.
It's a process. We
Yeah.
gotta take good care of their hair.
And you spent, I mean, even with Luce here, you had her come in about a half hour early and you guys were talking for about a half an hour.
Yep, I make sure I talk to my clients.
It's not just like, okay, next,
No,
long
no,
layer, next,
no,
long
no.
layer.
Every single person that sits on my chair, you know, the next client after the next, I don't say, okay, I got it. Because when I've done that, it kind of backfires on me when I think, oh, I got this texture down. Every day is different, which is the best part of why I do this curly hair, and I push it on my Instagram because I want to learn as much texture as I can. I want to feel and touch and meet all the texture that's out there, and it's been a blessing because I do get busy every day.
All right, so let's get back to the technique. So now you were starting to kind of soften your outline by elevating a little and cutting from the
Cut it
underneath.
from- yes.
Yep. And as Catherine Ellis says, she hit it on the head. You're sculpting it like marble.
Yes.
Yep. Again, you know, for those that maybe are challenged by the idea, this particular model does not wear her hair straight. This
So we're
human
not
being.
worrying about it
so
being
we're
straight.
not worried about it being
And
straight.
you're not straightening it in any way.
This hair will not be worn straight ever.
That's your brush for
We're
a
not
while.
worried about it being straight.
And Mona,
Yeah.
would you ever cut this with a razor? Natalia was asking. Or
You
cut-
know, to be
cut
honest,
with a
I
razor?
have not tackled that idea yet. I could try it. I have cut curly hair with a razor, but not as curly as her. I
Yeah,
would-
so again, here's where lots of different philosophies come in. I happen to be a big razor cutter.
Yes.
But I don't like to razor cut dry hair. But we've had people on HB Live that do dry razor cutting, and they're very successful at it. So for me, I mean, I could cut this with a razor, but I would do it damp, and I would still do what you're doing. I wouldn't want the hair soaking wet. I'd be damp and maybe use like a prep spray or something like that, and I could work. But again, there's a beauty to working totally dry. You know, so again, I think that's incredible.
It's important for me, again, when the hair has a lot of definition, I get to see where it's looser, where it's tighter, where I can blend it. Because when you cut it wet, you know, it's like, well, that got much shorter than the rest of the hair. So it's really also not just finding the shape, it's really blending with all the texture that a curly girl hair has. Because they at least have 2 different textures.
All right, so
Guarantee
again,
that.
you know, now we have lots of questions coming in about product, and of course that's a big thing with curly hair. It's probably been one of the biggest innovations for curly hair from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s was the development of product, you know, and I think it's one of the reasons why so many women can now wear their hair natural,
Right.
because product actually makes those curls, you know, so defined and beautiful and tames frizz when they want to tame frizz.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your product philosophy, you know, any particular products that you really love for curly hair.
Well, at the salon, I have been just using, honestly, Sebastian Potion 9 is my go-to.
So Sebastian Potion 9, which is a classic. It's
A
been around
classic, yeah.
since the early 90s when I started hairdressing. Potion number 9
Yeah.
was out.
You
It's
saw
like a
it?
blend of all different, it's like a leave-in conditioner with all different, 9 different ingredients, I believe.
I like it. It's my base for most of my curly hair client because again, there's weight to it. It's moisturizing, and then I do either a cream or a gel. I can't really say, oh, this is one of my. I try different things. Even most of the product that I use at the salon aren't for curly hair. They're all just for any hair texture. But because I don't have a specific curly hair line, I get to just use whatever I have that's available to me, which has been working fine for me.
So here's a great question coming in that I think is kind of thoughtful. So Melissa Megan, how do you handle clients who've been trained by another salon to cut their hair only in a certain way when they come to you? Like, so if someone's already been told at a salon, oh, this is the way that we must cut your hair, and then for some reason they come to you and they say, oh, well, I was told it has to be cut this way, whether that be wet or whatever. Like, well, how do you, and is that a big part of your consultations?
Yeah, I think that, you know, honestly, I'm very big on consulting with my curly hair clients, and you know, I think there's a reason why you sat on my chair, because you want a different change. You want something different from what you've been getting, and you know, everyone has their own technique, everyone has their own way. This is how I do it, but
So you're respectful of other
Of course.
ways, but you say, hey, I do it in a different way.
This is the way I-
Have you ever had someone that said, maybe, well, no, I really want it this way, and then you did it in their way? Or maybe you said, maybe I'm not the right hairdresser for you? How would you handle that? Especially with curly hair, because there's so many, like, it must be this way. I mean, there are even certain people that only cut curly hair on certain times of the month. You know, it's the absolute truth. Yeah, there's a philosophy in cutting curly hair that it should only be cut on full moon and around
really?
around the pat. I mean, this is how deep people are about their hair.
about their hair, yeah.
But I mean, sometimes do you just say no, or
You know, I've never really denied anybody on my chair. They're actually, you know, I want to make sure that you're happy, and I want to make sure that you're sitting on my chair for a reason. And, you know, I respect you. You know, it goes vice versa. I believe that we're all professionals, and like we need to be able to stand by our own ideas and our own beliefs as a hairdresser.
so you're just passionate, you present what you want to do,
what I
and
do.
you've never had a problem.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, you know, see my clients, you know, perspective and what they want as well. I don't.
But you have a
go in.
discussion and you talk about it. All right,
Totally.
let's get back to the technique. I know we're getting so philosophical because
Yeah.
the way people wear their hair it's an identity thing, you know, and so many people take it so deep. But let's get back to the technique here.
Again, same thing. I'm approaching it the same way. I'm, you know, cutting it underneath, and some I'm cutting a little bit over. But
Have you
for the
noticed a
most
difference in her texture that's caused your cutting to change in any way?
part- no. If, say, for instance, if she was much coilier and tighter, I would probably cut it more straight across. But right now, because I still want a little bit of that softness on the edge, because she is on the wavier side, it'll kind of lay a little softer.
So much of this is feeling, isn't it?
Feeling,
But let's talk a little bit about you, because I know that you started off as a kind of classically trained precision type hair cutter. How important is it to have that foundation before you move into this type of visual cutting? Someone back here mentioned out that this was totally visual cutting, and it's kind of true, but
It
there's
is.
still a process in your mind of geometry, isn't there?
Yes, of course.
Talk a little bit about that.
Actually, because I have had that background and I love the whole precision cutting, it actually helped me be able to break some of the rules and be able to just lift the hair, because I know it's almost like I kind of have to explain it like you have to know from the inside out, right? But doing curly hair, it's almost like understanding outside but digging in from the inside. That's
Right.
kind of how I.
Right, so
Kinda look at it.
that's like kind of carving marble, because you are coming from the outside, you know? You're not building it out like a building where you put the beams in from the inside out. You're actually deconstructing and taking away.
Yeah, and I think knowing the basic and knowing the just the cutting technique and stuff like that, it really helps me kind of have the confidence to just dive in there and say, I
Right.
got this.
So how did you go from some of that classic hair cutting to this? Have you ever taken any of the curly hair cutting systems trainings?
No, I thought about it in the beginning. I was like, oh, maybe I can, I can try it. But you know what? Because I'm fortunate enough that I've been doing a lot more curly hair almost every day. I mean, when I'm at the salon, I've kind of also had to teach myself. I'm still learning. There's still a lot of things that I'm learning, but because of the amount of texture that's sitting on my chair, that's how I've been learning.
So you kind of put yourself in this zone where you started putting out a lot of curly hair on social media, and then you started getting tons of curly hair clients, and you started to develop an approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, just learning every texture, I approach it differently, or I try the same way, and I'm like, oh, great, that one worked.
Now, how taut would you say that you're holding this hair before you cut it? Are you pulling it out?
Is there a lot of tension, or is it a very light?
I'm not pulling it out. I'm not pulling it this way. I'm just pulling it out, so that way I can take it out.
And how do you know what to cut off?
Well, I'm still kind of going, just like I said, how I'm just not using a comb. It's the same thing. My hands are my comb, but I'm taking it one by one, but I'm still on the same panel.
And then you're visualizing a shape, a three-dimensional shape, and you're bringing the pieces out to that.
Bringing it out that way.
We've got some drilling going on here.
Love it.
Yeah, here in the studio, someone around here.
Very New York City-like.
Okay, so a couple of important but basic questions. How long do you book your clients, especially with it being such a long process? And then how much do you charge?
Well, because it's not by the hour. I do like, it's kind of weird how I set it up. It's almost like an hour to 45 minutes, but then there's a break in between.
So you like wrap clients together?
Yeah, I couldn't do it all by myself.
Yeah, so you have an assistant?
I have an assistant.
And then
without her, I couldn't do my day. I couldn't do like 8 to 9 clients in a day.
And they like wrap together, so there's people in while other people are being worked on?
So while my client is being, while she's under the dryer or being shampooed, conditioned, and all that stuff, I'm cutting another client.
Awesome. Okay, so you just dropped down another piece.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking now? So I can tell that you're elevating that. Would you say that that's pretty much 90 degrees right out from the base?
Right up from the base, yes, but a little lower. I'm
Little
not
lower.
technically on here until I get to the top.
Okay.
I still want to create a very strong perimeter.
So
right
kind of
here.
everything below the round of the head,
Yeah.
you're holding down a little bit, but the top will
The
be
top
much
I will
higher.
probably be a little bit more free
Yep.
with that and pulling it a little bit more 90 degrees.
Awesome. So below the round of the head, you're holding a little lower, grabbing the curls individually. Now, I noticed, like, when you were working on the outline, you were really just kind of taking, like, not a clean cut, but a more solid cut on the ends,
Yes.
where now you're starting inside 2 or 3 inches back, and it seems like the scissor glides through the ends a little
Yes,
bit.
I'm softening the ends a little bit.
So it's not necessarily a blunt cut anymore.
Not anymore, no, we don't want that.
Do that in slow motion, that one. Right, so you're letting it 1, 2, 3, and then you cut on the ends.
Yes.
Now you're opening and closing the scissor, you're not dragging it along the hair. So opening and closing it as you move and then closing it on the end. So there's like a certain rhythm there, huh?
Yeah, it's like, I would be kind of going a little faster without the
camera in your face and the questions. Well, you got lots of people that love it. Lots of people that still want to know what happens when she blow dries it straight.
We will not be blow drying the hair straight.
Right? We've made a decision. Again, it's like you just approach things. It's what do they say? Form follows function. So here it's meant to be worn curly. So you've got a specific way of cutting it. Now, Mona, do you still ever do wet precision cuts?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so you do all kinds of cutting. You're not just saying this is the only thing in the world,
Yeah,
right?
this is not what I do. Yeah. it's-
Actually,
Absolutely.
before the curly girls, you had
I was good. I
You
love
pixie
my
queen.
short pixie. Yeah.
Mona was pixie queen before these
Yes.
curls.
Okay, big question that I was just asking about. Liz Almirante noticed that you changed your Instagram. So what is your new Instagram, and tell us why did you decide to change it?
It's called the Mona Cut.
The Mona Cut.
Well, I feel like with my name, I wanted people to see that this is me. Like I'm doing the Mona Cut. People have certain, oh, I want to do this kind of cut. I'm like, but I'm not trained through that process. I'm
Right.
not saying it's a bad thing. I just want people to know that I want to create the Mona Cut so my
It's-
client can feel special.
So you're branding it a little bit.
It's more
You're
than your
branding
name.
it. You're branding it. But for those that do want to follow you on Instagram, it's the Mona Cut.
The Mona
And
Cut.
what about on Facebook? Because you still put a lot of stuff on Facebook as well.
I changed that too. It's the Mona Cut as well.
So the Mona Cut. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so what are you looking for now? I see you're kind of really looking in the mirror.
Yes. So I'm dropping this. This is where she parts her hair. You see the shorter pieces where it's the grown-up bangs. I want to be able to blend that together. So I am actually going to save this for later. This is going to be, my freehand. I'm still going to use, part of the technique as far as like creating that shape, because I really want a really great base for her. When I talked about the top being a little bit more free, because really that is where it's going to create much more of the movement in her hair.
Awesome. Our buddy Andy Bates from Sacramento is joining us. He said he might have missed it earlier, but how did you learn to cut curly hair? And Andy, we were talking about that Mona's been learning by having so many curly-haired clients come in.
Yeah.
So a lot of trial and error. She started off as kind of a precision hair cutter in California.
And you also do have a Sassoon background.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I like to educate myself, and I do love the whole precision cutting. That's kind of one of my passion. And again, I think because of that, I have the confidence to just be able to say, great, let's try this texture. It's like, I guess that built my confidence, be able to like, I don't look at curly hair. I guess, I have the love for texture, but don't be afraid of the texture. It is still hair,
Now, how do you help people embrace their curl? I mean, obviously you have a lot of people coming to you who are like, oh, I want to wear my hair more curly. But is there anything that you say to people to help them really feel more comfortable? I mean, I can remember, I tell this story all the time. When I was a young hairdresser, I had a client who was a lawyer who had very beautiful curly hair, but had to get it blow dried because she said she couldn't go into court with curly hair. I remember that, and I was a young man, and I'd never even thought of something like that. She's like, "Oh, there's no way they take me seriously with curly hair." I was like, "What?"
I
So
think that's
what do you do when you have to deal with stuff like that?
I think that still happens.
I mean, it's just straight up racism, I
Yeah.
think. Personally,
I mean, that's kind of
it's like,
how-
oh, you got curly hair, you must be ethnic or wild. It's straight up racism, and that's what I remember thinking as a kid. I'm like, how do
Why is
people
that
get away
weird?
with that?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of one of the biggest reasons why a lot of the curly girls have been blow drying their hair, because situations like that, and it's kind of, disturbing a little bit. And
Right, that you have to force yourself to do something. I can actually remember, thinking like, imagine you had to like completely change your skin color to go into court. How would you feel about that?
Right.
This is who you are.
Yes, and in every curly girl hair, like they all come in different forms, different race. Anyone can have really curly hair. It doesn't
Right.
have to be specifically a certain culture or a certain race. Like me myself, is guilty of like making an assumption about my client's mix, and I'm like, oh, you this? You're like, no, I'm this. I'm like, oh, okay, and that's why I stopped asking.
All right, this was great. Danielle Green did #EndHairShaming. I think that's great. All right, so now this is something that I always like to talk about as well, because Mona, you have very straight hair. You've got a Filipino background. So it's like, how does the girl with the straight hair like get so into this curly world, and what's it like? And I mean, obviously you must have some interesting reactions from people, because I still think that the general public thinks like whatever hair you have, you must understand really well.
Right.
And how could you understand, so let's talk a little bit about that.
I think, that there is a little disadvantage that I do have with having straight hair. I don't get a chance to play with products. Someone with curly hair was a hairdresser, get a chance to do that. But honestly, with that said, I don't use any curly hair product at the salon. So just kind of educating yourself and, knowing what certain products can do. As far as me having straight hair, I have always had love for having.
You've had a crew
texture.
cut.
I've seen you with some serious perms over the years.
Yes,
too.
I
You
used
have
to
Bring
wear.
the perm back for Mona.
I used to perm my hair, make it super curly,
You
just
used to have a
like
crew
all
cut?
the clients. Yes. I like to play with hair. I like, I go short, I
Hey,
go
Patty.
long, all that stuff. I'm not afraid for change. So as far as, having my client want to embrace what they have, it is something that is growing out of your roots and your hair. And I think now in this movement, in this generation, like, it is about letting it free, and for them, it is what you said, is just feeling the freedom of like, well, this is what I have.
All right, let's get back to the technique. We had Phil Cooper, who's a great Hairbrained member, great contributor, asking some technical questions about elevation. So below the round of the head, you were elevating less.
Yes, like a little bit.
Now as you're getting up to the top,
Taking it
you're
up.
elevating more because you want to bring out more of the roundness internally.
Yes, and also more movement right on the top. A little softer, little lighter on the top, because this is what's going to create these curls are gonna, in about a month or so, her curls are gonna get even curlier. So it's gonna get lifted up. So this is what's gonna create her volume, which she's gonna want,
Mona,
Yes.
someone was asking if you color curly hair, if so, do you color it differently? Do you approach it differently than you would approach coloring straight hair?
I would definitely, curly hair is very sensitive, so I would definitely almost always recommend Olaplex or something to kind of keep the bond together. I don't do much coloring. I love coloring, but I think I keep it a little bit more on the safer side for myself.
Single processes and
Single
whatnot.
process, a very natural highlight.
I mean, because every time you color curly hair, you change the curls, don't you? That's what
It
I've
changes
always
the
felt.
curls,
Especially high lift and bleach, and
Changes,
it almost
yes.
straightens it, changes it.
So-
Very rarely does it leave
So
the
if you
curl
can have
exactly
one
the
nice,
same.
beautiful single process, you're happy with that, and a strong shape.
Yeah, keeping that color simple, but again, it's just something that you don't spend a lot of time doing. You're focused on
I'm
cutting.
cutting, yes.
Yeah. Do you do any color in the salon?
I do. I
A
did
little
some of my curly
10%?
girls. Yeah.
Right on. All right, guys. So again, we love your questions and keep them coming in for Mona. We're excited to announce a few things. Those of you that follow the Hairbrained Video Awards might have noticed that Mona made an incredible video this year and got nominated.
Yeah.
So she's nominated in the is it the Instagram category?
Yes.
In the
And-
Instagram category, which is very appropriate because she's really used Instagram as a vehicle to differentiate herself and get her message out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about making that video?
Actually, I did. When I saw that they were doing HVA, I was like, I gotta do one. I have to do one. And I don't do much videos on my Instagram. I'm usually mostly posting photos, and I haven't really quite tackled the whole video Instagram yet. So with that, I kind of collaborated with my friend Rob. And our model, Trey, and she kind of hooked me up with Rob. She's like, yeah, we can all do it together. Actually, I just rented a nice studio.
And you
quick in and out. We were an hour and a half because, I wanted to get it done right away. And my model, Trey, was like, oh, yeah, whatever, do whatever, And it was fun. And it was a really quick video, and I was really happy when I got
It turned out great, and it really encapsulates, your approach to hair in 1 minute, which is pretty cool. The way that you kind of working with the hair dry, picking it up, twisting, cutting freehand. Lots of love coming in, saying how great Loose looks. She's looking at herself in the mirror.
Checking
How does
yourself
it
out,
feel?
baby
I'm
girl.
so excited.
Yeah.
It looks great already.
And you're not going to wear it straight, right?
No.
It's still, we've done this plenty of times, and there's always so many people that say, what happens if it's straight?
Right.
Yeah, which I just find fabulous. So here's a question coming in from Heaven Townsend. Would you over-direct the hair forward or back to help with blending in the front?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing
Yeah,
right now.
that's why I asked. So it looks like you're bringing it forward.
Forward to
Yep.
kind of round it off right around her face.
Yeah.
Don't be too deceived by the fact that it's curly hair. I still approach it the way I would do it if she had straighter hair, except she doesn't. But because of my technical background, I do have the freedom to be able to have the confidence to do what I'm doing right now.
And how long have you been doing hair now?
15 years.
15 years. I was just talking about this kind of path to mastery that in those first 10 years, which I think is a long time, but I really think a hairdressing, haircutting takes at least 10 years of working on it a lot before you start to develop your own style. So
yes.
you're now at a place where you've kind of got your own style.
Yes, I believe so. It's great. And, you know, thank you, Instagram. Thank you, my curly hair girls. Thank you, Hairbrained.
So, simple question coming in from Richard Latorella, you know, about are you slicing or cutting? And I think we said you're doing a little bit of both.
Yes.
You slice and then you cut.
Yes.
So you slice those, you open and close, which we tend to call slicing, not sliding, because you open and close the
Yes.
scissor, damaging the cuticle less.
Yes.
And then you close it at the end where you want to take the length off.
Yes, so I'm kind of doing a little bit more of an angle. To see right over the top of her hair.
So there's also been a lot of questions along the way about thinning out or removing bulk. So, you know, do you think that little bit of slicing before you cut the
On the
ends off?
edges, yes.
That kind of,
It's
you're doing it at the same time. Do you do a separate pass and go back through the hair to remove bulk or thin it
Yes.
out? Or is that usually enough for you?
Well, just like, you know, if, again, if she had so much more hair, I would definitely carve from the inside. And then, because I've already built my perimeter, I would probably take the weight out from the inside.
Right. Right. Yeah, Richard, you know, when we say sliding, that's when you drag the scissor along, and that would tend to, I think at least, make the hair a little more frizzy. Where you're opening and closing the scissor, it's actually micro cutting on the surface, isn't it? So you're making micro cuts. You can
Cuts,
say
yes.
cutting, cutting, cutting.
Because you know, you want the ends to have an integrity still. You don't want to thin out the curly hair, especially if they have a great definition to their hair. You don't really want to do that.
Christy Ramos Henderson's been supporting all along, which is great to hear that positivity. She said the shape is building up beautiful.
Thank you. Hi, my darling.
Angel was asking, she's loving it, and she wants to know if you have any advice on how to get past the fear of starting to do this when you don't work with curly hair very much.
You know what? You know, if you have the opportunity to kind of maybe walk around wherever you live and find those curly girls and, you know, ask them to model for you. I mean, honestly, again, because when I started the curly hair, I do it almost every day, and I do like 8 to 9 of them on a daily, especially on a Thursday, because that's my one day. You've got to learn to feel the hair. It's not just about cutting the hair. It's like understanding what the hair does. You know, that's why maybe it is a little difficult for people to kind of just go for it, because it can be fearful. Be like, oh, I wouldn't know what to do with her curly hair. But, you know, I think being a hairdresser, as an artist, like in anything, you have to try it to understand it. You know?
So, technical question came in from David Yu about your section. So, when you were working on your first kind of working horizontally and getting the perimeter shape in, it seemed like the sections were more like panels, about 1.5 to 2 inch thick. And then now as you're working, you're thinking kind of like vertically and then taking curls within those vertical, like 1 inch. Seems like you follow like a 1 inch panel and then you grab a curl within it. Does that sound right?
Yes, I'm kind of, right now as I am, like when I explained earlier, I want the top to have more of the freedom, and we are rounding it up, so I am pulling it more forward this way, and it's still being able to elevate it 90 degrees. So what I'm doing is, it's kind of almost on a diagonal way, but you don't actually see the actual section, but it's in my, it's visual.
Again, you know, really a technique that's designed for the fabric that she's working with, designed to be worn naturally, designed to be cut visually as the curl flows. Is it for everyone? Maybe not, but there's always finding the right people for you, for your niche. And one of the ways that, that Mona did that was by putting out incredible work on Instagram. Do you want to talk a little, because some people ask, do you use a professional photographer? How are you doing your before and afters on Instagram?
You took a class.
I you know, in the beginning I used my phone, and you know, I just invested in a cute little Sony camera, but I do it mostly, and I use, you know, some editing apps and stuff like that. But you know, it's my work. I want to be able to take a photo of what angle I want to show off. And the more and more I photographed my client, the more and more I wanted to see which way I would direct my clients. But basically, that's me taking the photo.
Is there a certain app that you use or a certain kind of editing software, anything like that? People always are interested in that type of stuff.
I use Facetune, honestly.
What's it called?
Facetune.
Phase
And then-
2. Is that an app?
As an
See,
app,
I've never
to
heard of
kind
that, so I
soften
just
a little bit
learned.
of their skin tone, maybe.
Oh, Facetune.
Facetune, yeah.
I thought you said Phase 2.
Ah.
Facetune.
Facetune.
Got it.
Yes.
But you also did take a photography class.
I did take a photography class, when I was like, okay, I need to learn a little bit more about my camera, and I need to learn a little bit more of how to capture. So yes, I did last summer.
So again, still lots of questions about your process. So when a client comes into you with their hair natural as is,
Which is what we did earlier.
Yes.
do you usually just go right to work, or do you ever wash it first and then dry it? Is that part of the consultation? How do you determine if you're going to just go right into cutting it, or if you need to wash it or do anything like that?
I go right, if my client came in with her hair down, for the most part, I tell the receptionist to tell my client, new clients, to come in with your hair dry, put a little bit of product, and wear it as you would wear it on a daily basis. It helps me just get right to it. But let's say her hair is way too oily, or she had it in a bun. Yes, sometimes I'd have to reverse my process.
So if it's stretched out or unnatural or oily or dirty in a way
In a way
that
where
isn't
I can't really
conducive.
see the texture.
So,
I
what
do.
are your thoughts on shampooing? Obviously, lots of people with curly hair try to stay away from shampooing or use co-washes, things that don't have sulfates in them.
Yes.
Do you have any opinion on that? And what do you do normally? Let's hear Mona, and then we'll see how Luce cares for her own hair.
Every single one of my clients, when I think, some people say, my hair loves sulfate, my hair hates it. So everyone has their own opinion, because honestly, it really is in their own texture and how they want their hair styled on the daily. Like some girls love the frizz, some girls love.
So you're just open.
I'm very open,
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
and I ask my client, and I don't judge them based on I never shampoo my hair, I do this. I want to know what the process are too.
So what's your process, Luce? Do you use shampoo often, or
I
do you?
don't shampoo as often as I condition, and I try to stay away from sulfates for sure.
Okay. Did
Yeah,
you find
it
it
just
just makes
works
the hair
better
too
for
fluffy?
me,
Or,
yeah.
So you
So-
condition every day and maybe shampoo a couple times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Does the sulfate make your hair feel drier?
It just feels drier, yeah.
I recently was doing an event, and I had a model, and her hair was just so responsive. I was razor cutting it, and she told me she hadn't shampooed it in a year. She wasn't curly haired. She just had wavy, natural hair, and it was just so incredible. I mean, it didn't smell at all, which is great. It naturally, there's different theories on that, but I put a picture up on my Instagram, and it was one of the most liked pictures I put up in ages, because the hair just had so much movement and life to it. But like you said, it's a case-by-case basis, right?
Okay, so I just want to make a comment. Now I am visually cutting it, just to kind of see the shape. So what I'm doing.
So
is
what's
pretty
different now?
good.
You're not grabbing any hair.
No,
You're actually just
I am
sculpting.
gonna just sculpt now.
Which is traditionally how, precision cutters were taught to cut afro texture, just freehand with the scissor. When I was training at Sassoon, that's what we would do. We would actually pick it out and cut it freehand with the scissor.
Yes.
How often there's a great question from Jennifer Bridgman. How often do you suggest your clients rebook?
3 to 4 months, and if they have damaged ends, that still needs to be taken out, 2 months.
So you judge it based on the health of their hair. And one of the things I love that you do on Instagram a lot is you kind of follow up, like the way the hair changes. So it's like Luce's hair looks like this today. Next week the curl will have changed a little bit, and you'll put up another picture.
Exactly.
And then a month from now you'll put up another one. So how do you do that? Do you just follow them?
I follow my client back once, haha, that's you. Now I'm gonna follow you. I mean, it's good for me because
Stalker.
Yes, stalker. And you know what? I also like to interact with my clients, because when I start to see their posts, I'm like, oh wow, like that really grew in nicely. Again, I don't have curly hair. It's also a way for me to kind of understand what happens after they walk out of the salon, which is great for Instagram and the whole social media is that you can do that. Some clients are private, some clients are not private. But if they're not private, then I just follow them, and most of my clients allow me to follow them.
And, do you get a lot of referrals from clients?
Oh, yes,
How do you work
yes.
that?
Oh.
Do you do any type of incentivizing?
Oh
or-
yeah. So the salon, Muse Salon do like a referral 10%
So
off
tell us,
for both.
you mentioned the salon you work in here in New York City. It's
Muse
Muse.
Salon,
Muse
we're on
Salon.
20th Street between 6th and 7th. Yeah, they have an incentive of 10% for both the person that's being referred and the person that referred the new client.
Great. So we've got some great recommendations for other apps. Yeah, that VS Co. app, Taylor
love that.
Smith's is incredible. That one, there's a learning curve on that one. I know my wife
Definitely.
Kelly and Randy Taylor, they use that one. It's more for photographers, but there's a little learning curve. Hope Harris, good old friend of ours, she's tuned in. She has a question. As you cut, the curl is being pulled out. How much do you think this shape will change after you shampoo it? And is that kind of why you do it? You cut it like this, then you wet it, and then you check it again usually?
Yes, that's the reason why. I mean, that's why I section it to cut it too, so because it's still technical in there. And then now I'm freehanding because obviously some of the ends have kind of had long pieces here and there, so I'm just cleaning it up.
So you usually do this dry in the salon, then you send it back, you wash it, you
Wash
dry
it.
it, and if there's any more cutting, you cut it again.
You cut it again.
But do you ever cut it dry at all? I mean, generally, you don't, after you wash it, you don't check
Go
it
back
wet?
in? No, it's just really surface. Just I'll still pick it up if I feel like that was still a little, some strand are still longer than others. But no, I spend another 10 minutes with them.
Here's a question coming in from Laura Leone or Leone. I think this is a great question because when I first started hairdressing, it used to come up a lot. Do you find that cutting dry hair like dulls your scissors more?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit, but I have two that the little small ones that I use. I actually alternate them, so I'm not using the same one
One
all
scissor
day.
So that's a Yasaka. That's a relatively inexpensive
Yes,
scissor.
yes.
Do you feel like more comfortable just buying a new one every year or so?
Yes, I would probably buy a new one every year if this. I mean, I do.
If you have the means to do so.
On the flip side of that, there are different scissors that are designed for dry cutting. They have a different shape to the blade, and if you were really concerned about it, and you were like, well, this is my precision wet cutting scissor, I want it as sharp as possible, then you could use a dry cutting scissor because, correct me on what you think, Mona, but I don't like my dry cutting scissor to be super, super sharp.
Yeah, well, I cut my hair.
You cut your hand, first of all. Plus, it could be, you want that softness. You want it to push the hair a little bit. It's kind of maybe one of the reasons why you cut dry, because you're not looking for exactly that same crispness
right.
at the ends of the hair. But that's a great question and something great to think about. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, it is like sculpting a bonsai tree, Gwen. Yeah, yeah. Mrs. Miyagi.
How many names do I get?
Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off.
Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit more on her fringe right here. You see how I'm looking
What
at
are you
it, and
thinking?
it's heavy. It's still heavy right in here. So I'm going to take this section out, and I'm going to lighten this area. You guys see that? It's a
Right.
little bit on the heavy side. So I'm going to
So visually, you just pulled the pieces out.
just lighten it up.
Yeah, but I think, having some foundation and technique, you kind of naturally gravitate towards taking some order in the section, huh?
Yes.
So here's a great question, another great one about from Jennifer Bridgman again. Do you tend to like the hair to be colored before or after the cut?
I would cut first, dry
Yeah.
cut, and then I'd color their hair.
Yeah, because you could, then the people can, if you're working with a colorist, you can place the color really where you want to see it. I mean, I think most of the time that works out really well. I think over the years it's been changed around where people color first and then cut because it's more efficient for the salon.
Yes.
Because otherwise they have to be at the wash twice. And it can kind of make it really difficult, right? Because you're going to wash it and cut it and color it. Except in this case, you don't wash it first.
You don't wash it first, so
yeah.
I just go in and cut it or trim it, whatever I have to do first before they color the hair.
Great, guys. Thanks for watching along and all the support. Again, of course, there were a number of people that were concerned about it being worn straight, but I think we've kind of gotten to the bottom of that. Loose doesn't wear her hair straight. This haircut is not really designed for people who want to wear their hair perfectly flat ironed. Although if she wanted to blow it out with a round brush and maybe use a curling iron, how would that work?
Well, she can set it. She can roll or set it herself.
Could totally get away with that. But to wear it pin straight and
No,
flat,
not like how my hair would be.
yeah.
No.
But this doesn't make as much sense.
It wouldn't.
But you know, sometimes you get surprised, right?
Yeah.
Because I can remember learning razor cutting and thinking, oh man, this is going to be really scary if it's straightened, and then flat ironing it and being like, wow. If you've got a foundation of technique, sometimes it works out, doesn't it?
Right.
All right, so let's get back into lightening up this shape around the front.
So you see how that's a little bit lighter?
Mm-hmm.
More movement. Now I'm gonna drop this because this is where her part is. I'm gonna do the same thing what I did underneath right in here. So I'm still doing technical and visual at the same time.
So let's really, really dial into this, Mona, and give us your loudest voice you can so we can hear all the details. She got little lungs. She's only little.
I'm little. Okay. So I'm
Small
gonna.
but mighty.
So my approach on the bang area or little shorter layers around the top, it's almost like a zigzag thing, short, long, so that way they kind of dance along with each other. That's kind of how I look at it. So that's the technique I'm going to approach on her bang area.
All right, we really want to see this up close and get a beautiful explanation here. So when you say zigzag, I mean, it's just the way that you pull the pieces?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to actually cut shorter and leave some long pieces, meaning this strand is going to be short. I'm not really concerned how short it goes because it's going to blend in. I'm going to keep this long.
So you're literally cutting pieces at different lengths?
At different lengths.
And that's just visual? You're just
visual.
remembering,
Yes.
like, concentration.
Short,
You know that old game?
and keep that long.
Yep. So you're literally
pull.
picking them up. Some of them are maybe 5 inches, some of them are maybe 8
Yes.
inches, and you're alternating. So are you working, Christy Ramos, who's been with us from the beginning, super supportive. Thanks, Christy. It's people like you that make us want to keep doing this.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah. She wants to know, are you working with that natural parting deliberately?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you usually work with the natural partings?
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely working it. You got a lot of admirers out there, Luce. Teresa Convoy says you're beautiful.
Thank you guys.
Yep. Lots of inspiration. Frizerski Zadlako says thanks for the inspiration. That's definitely an exotic name. I wonder what part of the world you're watching from. And I'm sorry if I butchered your name. But
If.
you know, yeah.
I don't know if that was an if.
Yeah. It's kind of a tough one.
It was.
Frizerski, I think. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no? Did I get it right? Yeah, close enough. So are you
Mary's buying
continuing
it.
to do that weaving now? Different
Oh,
lengths?
Actually, no. I just kind of did just that part where I dropped it from here,
Just around the front.
just around the front, her bang area, and just kind of blended what I saw visually that were still a little longer. So right now, I'm just really blending what I see that needs to kind of get cut. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with the shape that I'm seeing right now. It's balanced. I'm looking at it in the mirror. It's balanced on both sides. She has a little movement just right around the front. So,
It's looking fantastic. You know what's interesting? You were standing behind and looking in the mirror, Mona. When I was, again, a young hairdresser, they used to encourage us to wear white shirts so that we could see the contrast of the shape. Do you ever try that? Like try to wear white so that you can see it?
well, it's hard. I don't want to stay in my white shirt, but yeah, I try. You know, it's like I really kind of, when I'm looking more for angles for my curly hair client, I like to kind of look a little bit more on the outside, more perimeter, if anything, you know. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna.
one of the reasons why I never loved the all black philosophy of salons. I'm like, I know I can't do my best haircut when I'm in all black because I can't really see the silhouette. I like more of a white or a gray, you know, because when I stand behind, but that's...
That's when you know it's all white.
Yeah, I used to love that. You know, I think they changed it though. They changed it because I used to love the all white thing. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm having her pull her head all the way down for me, just so I can cut some of the hair that was kind of left behind underneath. You know, just now I'm just cleaning it up. I'm not changing any of the shape or anything like that. This is really just kind of her hairline.
So tonight it's probably you've been cutting for about an hour. Is that normal, or you know, is this slowed down a bit because you're explaining?
Yeah. Usually it would probably just take me about 20 to 30 minutes, unless, you know, they have long hair or much thicker density.
You don't have me asking you all kinds of questions and confusing you.
Mhm, exactly.
Yeah. Telling you should wear white. Yeah. Right on. Awesome. Great, guys. So again, you know, Mona's coming into some of the finishing touches here, so we'd love to hear your questions. Again, that price point, Mona, a lot of people want to know how much you charge. And do you charge different prices for a new client or a regular client?
Well, my regular clients, before I started doing the curly hair, have a different price, obviously, because, you know, you want to always make sure that you take care of your regular clients. New clients, especially most of the clients that I do get are from Instagram. Even if it's a referral, I try to keep it the same no matter if you have long hair. You know, I don't want to discriminate based on what you have, so I keep it as a flat rate, $160.
So you're charging $160 for all your new clients,
Yes.
But you do have some older clients. Now, and I think that's fairly normal because this question comes up a lot. $160 is a lot of money for a haircut. I think everyone would agree. But if you're an expert and you're doing something really well, then you deserve it. But you might have some people, maybe from before, that you didn't raise to $160. We call it managing the old while you
Yes.
create the new. And it's kind of the only way to get your price up there. I mean, I've worked with hairdressers that charge $500, but they don't charge $500 to every single client that sits in their chair. They try to create a new price point. So if you're out there and you're trying to move ahead, don't feel like every single client, but be transparent about it, because if you lie about it, you're going to get caught. But you know, if you say, hey, I have a price for my clients that's grandfathered in, but I'm still raising it every year, I would imagine even those ones you raise every year, $5, $10 at least. But then you have a new price point for new clients. Yeah, and it's worked out for me. I sometimes have a mother and daughter that come in together and pay different prices, but I've been transparent about it. Your mother's been coming for 10 years, you're brand new, this is my brand new price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips, Mona, for clients that have challenges with their curl pattern just kind of relaxing naturally and how to reinvigorate their curl?
Well, the thing is that I think each curly girl needs to understand to embrace their own texture. There's so many different texture in one head. Sometimes I have clients who say, make my hair curlier, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Let's cut it off.
Well, you can always throw a perm in there.
Yes, you could do that, or set it.
Do you do any perms? I know I've seen you with
I can do a
perms.
perm. I can do a perm. Not every single one of you should come see me, but but I do. I can perm. I can perm hair. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, awesome. So again, as you're getting to the finish now, what are your thoughts?
I like the balance of her hair.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
It looks so good.
You're good. She has a shape. She has movement. You know, and you guys see me kind of like moving her hair a little bit, giving her, lifting it up off the root as well. It's just to kind of make sure that there's no left little pieces here and there that's going to stick out. I want to make sure that when she goes home and washes her own hair and put her own product, that this shape is going to be there. Whether it's going to be softer, maybe it'll collapse a little bit, or if she picks it out, she can even exaggerate to make it even bigger.
Do you think that this type of cutting allows you to create a lot of diverse shapes, or do they all kind of tend to fit into a certain look? I mean, do you feel like you can really do any kind of shape, or do they all tend to have this kind of rounded kind of balance to them?
Well, because of the texture of curly hair, there is somewhat of a limitation to the shape where you can approach. You can give them just the 3 different shapes that is based on the hair cutting technique.
It can be more square, more A-line,
yes.
or more round.
And if not, do creative haircut like asymmetry. Those are other things that you can do to create a fun haircut for curly hair. But it's different when you're trying to do some like different cuts on straight hair. On curly hair, it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah.
But yes, that tends to kind of fall in that 3 different shapes.
Jeremy, thanks for noticing my blazer again, especially since that one time I wore it and you called me out. I've been wearing blazers every single time, trying to class up the joint a little bit. Yes, this is another one of my favorite blazers. Thanks for joining us. Right on. All right, so it looks like the big reveal there. How do you feel, gorgeous?
It looks
So
Yeah,
pretty.
get your hands in there.
I love it.
So again, in the salon, normally at this stage, you would take them back and rewash
Get
them.
them shampooed, the whole shampoo. I get my assistant to shampoo her. Put
You got a
some
friend named
conditioner.
Jordan Cherry?
Oh, hi, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
Jordan's watching. She says you look amazing. So normally you would take them back at this stage, wash it, condition it, and then
put some
you-
product in their hair,
Yeah.
put them under the hood or dryer.
So you use the hooded dryer.
I
So,
do.
And then you
I
shake
do.
it out.
I shake it out, and then I'll go actually and diffuse the hair to kind of give it more movement, some more volume. I still want to be able to. I want her to walk out with this shape, but with more definition in her curls, and the volume.
Well,
But
looks
you're not paying
fabulous.
$160 today, so.
Looks fabulous. Lucia, you look great. Thanks for being such a great model, bringing in beautiful hair. Thanks, Mona. Don't forget, Mona's going to be on stage with us at the IBS show. And send her your love and good wishes for the HVAs. The
Thanks,
judges
Sarah
are
and
voting
DJ
right
for letting
now.
us use your space
Good
at
luck.
the main.